Good evening, Sri Lanka. Welcome to Law and Order. In the previous episode, we spoke about immigration and immigration law, the act that controls the Sri Lanka territories and what people do with regards to visas and so on and so forth. Today, we're going to continue the conversation, and to do so, we do have with us in the studios Mr. Astika Devendra, attorney at law. Good evening to you, Astika.
Good evening.
And, taking a cue from last week's episode, we spoke about what people do and how someone could take visas and passports and all of that really happens. I just wanted to popped up to me that can minors take visas and passports, and how does that happen?
Yes. Yes, it's important because the law relating to this changed at a point. Because initially, if you can remember when, I don't know with what age you are, but when we were kids, our names could be inserted in the name of a guardian, mother or a father. So you can go under that passport. That is no longer available. You have to have your own passport. Minors can have a passport. So there are a bit of complications. So it's very important that you ask that question. For the passport to be given for a minor is categorized as a person who is under the age of 16, not 18. The father and mother both must consent. Through in writing as well as, if it is possible, they must accompany the child to get the passport to the Department of Immigration and Immigration. Now the question arises, if at all, if the parents are separated, then there is a question. Now, as you know, this is not immigration and immigration law, but this is something that we see. Even though we don't see much of immigration and immigration cases, we see that when parents are separated, one parent want to take the child abroad, the other parent is not consenting. If that person is consenting, there is no issue. But if the person is not consenting, first of all, you can't get a passport for the child. Secondly, if you are going to most of the countries, if it's a child, minor child, then they ask for the consent of both the parents. Unless you forge the documents, there is no way. Then, what do? As you are aware, the upper guardian of the child is the district court. If one of the parents is refusing, then of course you can go to the district court and get the permission from that court instead of the father. So yes, minors can get a passport, to your question, and they have to be under 16, and those requirements must be fulfilled.
And just taking a cue from what you just said with regards to document forging, this is something we have heard and we have seen people say that a lot of people have taken so much of money and done so many things. How often do you get these cases of forged passports and all of that?
Actually, very often. The reason is, now why people would wonder, why do you need to forge documents? First of all, what do you forge? Now, from my experience, what I have seen is people generally forge visas. Because if you have a you have a Sri Lankan passport, then you don't need to forge that visa for passport, but you need to forge the visa of a country. But now forging of the visa has also been very difficult, because that the technology behind the visas are very much superior. So it's very difficult to forge a visa unless you are going to India or some other country. You know, you have the biometrics and everything. It's very difficult to forge the visa. So I think relatively to, let's say, 10-15 years back, the amount of cases have gone down. But then you see people forging passports also. Then why, one might wonder why. The reason is this. Now, if you have this particular type of cases called helmet cases. That is, you have a passport. Let's say it's your passport. They replace my face with yours, but that is also now difficult because you have the biometrics and the face is
technology has evolved.
But people sometimes those days used to forge passports also, because if you give your passport, if your visa is rejected, unless there are very compelling reasons, the foreign mission, let's say your visa is rejected to the United Kingdom, it's very difficult for you to reapply and get. So people, rather than saying that I'm reapplying, they used to give a different passport. So those are the types of cases, and those are the documents you see people forging. But even if you forge a document that you need to get, but that you don't see very much happening for the Sri Lankan authorities, more so that people give documents which are forged or not correct in its content to foreign missions. Those people, of course, if they accept, they give the visa, but even if they find that the documents are forged, they don't follow it up because they don't want court cases in Sri Lanka. So you don't find those types of cases, but the types of cases where you forged visas and passports are somewhat there. Shall I go on from that? Just to say, this act, Ishan, was basically forced upon us. It's not something, because we were not very much concerned about preventing Sri Lankan people from going abroad. But there was international pressure saying that people are coming to our countries illegally. So you strengthen your laws to prevent that from happening while we are doing our end. So this act was forced upon, and at the inception, for immigration and offence under the Immigration and Immigration Act, most of the for forging of passport and so on, there was in fact no bail. You can get bail for murder, you can get bail for rape, but for someone trying to go abroad, you couldn't get bail. So at one point, the Court of Appeal said, no, doesn't matter. Even though the act says no bail, they were granting bail, and the Supreme Court revised that order, and the amendment came in. At this particular point of time, the penalties are not that severe. It's about 1 to 5 years for most of the offences, sentences, but that also you can give suspended sentence and so on. That is, what suspended sentence is. Bail for a person who have given forged passport or carrying a forged passport, you can get bail from the magistrate court, but someone called a facilitator, the law of bail is a bit strict. Facilitator is, you are the one who's trying to go, I'm the one who's doing the forging, and I'm the one who's facilitating for those people. If you can get bail, if you're caught, only from the High Court under exceptional circumstances. As far as the immigration cases are concerned, generally these are the two types of cases that you find.
And you mentioned about foreign missions, Astika, and I think Sri Lanka, as I mentioned at the previous episode also, we do not have so many embassies here in Sri Lanka. Say, for instance, I want to visit a country that Sri Lanka does not have a foreign mission here. What do we do?
It depends on the country. For example, now even I think UK, I'm not sure, Canada, and there are several countries, even though they have a mission here now, for while they because they are streamlining their issues, even though you apply here, your passports are taken to different country for processing, or the material documents are sent, and they are the ones who are deciding. You don't face an interview in Sri Lanka as you used to do those days. Now, but even if you don't have most of the missions, I am not exactly sure, I have not tried to go to a country where there is no mission in Sri Lanka, but if there is such a country, most of the time, 99% of 100, they would provide you with a mechanism. Sometimes you have, now for example, most of these the UK, Canadian, Australian visas are sort of the applications are collected by a particular center. So either by a center, or now online systems are very much improved. So they would provide you with a system, but I actually, without knowing the particular country and without studying on it, I won't be able to answer, but they will have a mechanism, that is for sure.
Yeah, because even I have heard in certain instances where certain applications are sent to India for verification and authentication before it comes back. So the time frame and all that could change as well with regards to if you have a foreign mission here in Sri Lanka to not having one here. So those are little things I think the general public needs to know.
Actually, I told you about at the last episode, I said about Canadian visa. I didn't know that they were sending these documents to now initially what they do is they used to packet the entire thing and send it to India. Now they don't do that, they scan and send. So you're expecting your result from a person that you have not even seen, and you can't even inquire, and you get to know. Then we got to know that they want 21 days to process. So these are things that sometimes we take things for granted, thinking that you can just walk into a mission and then you can apply and get it, but that is not the case. So that if you if you are constrained with time, I mean you have a urgency, then these are things that you must know, and all those information are available online.
And from that I'm going to deviate a little because this is something that I've heard of, seen and all of that. say you come in with a particular type of visa, and say you come in as a monk, or for that matter a religious dignitary, and say over a period of time you decide that you want to leave your monastery or whatever and want to find employment, what would happen to someone of that nature?
Now, when you look at the Immigration and Immigration Act, now there is nothing, even on the last time I told you, my memory serves me right, there is nothing preventing a person who comes as a student, by law, by operation of law, to say no, you can't change your status to something else. There is nothing of that nature. But then you have to fulfill the requirements in that category. Now, for example, you come in as a religious person and then you start a business, which you can't do. If you can recollect, sometimes back there is this famous restaurant, takeaway place at Rajagiri, and they said that there were certain people who had come into Sri Lanka on a different basis, and they were staying at a different base. They had come on a business visa or tourist visa, and now they was working at that without having that employment visa. So I don't believe that Sri Lankan authorities are that strict on this issue, but you must make that effort. But if you don't do that, of course you are at fault. Then you can be charged, you can be deported, you can be detained, all that can be done.
So if we look at the punishments or penalties, for that matter, with regards to the cases that you mentioned?
No, for these, for example, if you come in as a priest and then you are doing business, what Sri Lankan authorities basically do is they are deported. That's it. Until such time, they might face a bit of a difficulty until such time these are investigated, but they are basically deported. And also, there is one provision in the Act says that if they incur a cost to deport that person, that can be reimbursed through their assets in Sri Lanka. But they are not, for example, we are not going to punish them and put him in our prisons when our prisons are overcrowded, and we end up paying them more. So there is no point in doing that. The best thing is that same thing in Sri Lanka. If Sri Lankan goes to another country, you're detained and then you're deported. Same thing that we will do here.
So I'm going to go into something that a lot of people have tried to do over the last decade or so, taking a boat to another country. So what's the legal advice that you would give people to prevent from doing something of that nature?
Legal advice to people is don't. It's simple as that. But the problem is not that. The problem is, as you say, that when people are in financial...
Or if I may rephrase it, why are people being misguided?
Misguided. Actually, Ishan, the problem is that misguidance is a very tricky thing to answer without answering that. The thing is that when people are desperate times call for desperate measures. So that is the issue that they go, and maybe some people succeed in doing so. Some people would have succeeded, otherwise people won't be doing this. But I think on the part of the government and also our immigration department and us and you as in the media needs to educate people. Now, for example, Australian Embassy, they run advertisements in our media saying, don't try to come, you are going to be in Christmas Island, right? They keep telling you that. So we must also do that. We must, because as a country, we have to safeguard the rights of our people. So if you know that, taking a boat and going and getting stranded there is not good for them and for our image as well, then we must also ensure that that doesn't happen. And we have seen that there are all these boundaries, we have our navy, they have their navy, and some people die trying to do this. So there are people I know who have gone to Italy via our boat. I can imagine Australia, but who have gone to Italy through several boats. So some people have died even. We might even not know the people who have died. But I think education, in the sense like informing them of the repercussions and what has happened is a duty of the government and the media.
And I think that's something that a lot of people needs to be told also. I think we need to first of all look at what needs to be done, read up on what sort of documents are needed and how you get it done without having to resort to this kind of thing, because I think that's led to enough and more issues that we have faced. From that, I would like to ask you with regards to the encroachments, with regards to foreign fishermen. Now we have had this issue with Indian fishermen poaching into Sri Lankan waters and Sri Lankan fishermen vice versa. So what really happens in a situation like that? Because we have seen many boats being confiscated and so on, and even whatever that they have done, and a lot of people have ended up stranded either in India or Sri Lanka. What do they do?
Yeah, that's very good. That's a very good question. When I was studying up on this also, I came across this provision. Even though I knew that it could be done, I didn't know what our provision under it was done. Now, the minister has the power to gazette the armed forces as immigration officials, or the powers of the Immigration Act can be given to them. So that is why probably the Navy is going and catching them, because they are not police, they are not immigration, but the power of the Navy have been given this authority to go and do this. Now this fisherman coming in, of course, is not simply an immigration matter. They have charters, there are territorial issues, right, all that. Now once they cross into our borders, Sri Lankan waters or Sri Lankan, the territory, of course they are in violation of this act because they have not fulfilled these requirements. But then I have this question, but they might not have the passport also, but I am just thinking out loud. Now, for example, I say that if that fisherman is like from, I'm not sure, I don't think India is such a country, because we have this issue with India. But if that was, let's say, an American citizen, he can get visa on arrival. So if he is an American fisherman, then he can say, I'm coming to the port, right? So for example, but that will never happen. But the repercussions are such. But I think we can't take India and Sri Lanka. This is not a situation where we can like strictly enforce the law, because that is our closest country. That's a big country, it's a powerful country, and I think it has to be resolved through diplomatic means and through state means by diplomatic discussions. I believe which has not succeeded up to now, because the question seems to remain. I saw on the news yesterday, I think yesterday or day before, now the Sri Lankan fishermen have taken the law into their own hands, and they have gone and surrounded two Indian boats, and then all call the Navy, because that shows firstly the government has failed, the state has failed. I'm not saying the particular government, whatever government, and also our forces have not been able to live up to their expectations.
So looking at that kind of thing, because I think this is something we have spoken about as media. We have published about so many incidents over the last 2-3 decades. Is it ignorance that most of these fishermen now, even Sri Lankan fishermen, are caught in South India and all of that has happened? They've spent many nights in camps and all of that. So is that ignorance, or it's purely that they've not been properly educated?
No, I don't think it's ignorance, because even though these fishermen are sort of, they might not be of a class of higher educated citizens, but they are well aware. All these fishing boats are equipped with GPS devices. They have radio, they can talk, all those is available. Is that you see that the fish are, there's a saying that grass is always green on the other side. So you are here, this is your border, you see, that the fish, you have these sonars and everything, the fish is on the other side, so they go to catch the fish. So I don't think it's ignorance. There might be 1 or 2 boats, where you have lost the GPS goes, and you have lost your motor and just floats away, but generally it's not ignorance.
Right. Something that people might face, for instance, you go abroad, you misplace your passport, what happens?
Yeah, if you misplace your passport, I have just this, it can be twofolds. One is that you misuse your passport, you are a Sri Lankan citizen, what can you do? You can get what is called NMRP, that is a non-machine readable passport or a temporary travel document. That passport you should be able to get from your mission, that is Sri Lankan mission in UK or US or otherwise. But for example, if a foreign national uses a passport here, right, then that person is also given a document in Sri Lanka, and which to say, he lodged the complaint in the police, and then that document is also given by some form of certificate. That certificate is given by that is called an identification certificate, that is given by the Department of Immigration that he can give to his mission in Sri Lanka to get an emergency travel document.
So if such thing happens to an individual, there is nothing to panic about. You need to go find the Sri Lankan mission. If you are abroad, that's the best way to deal with it.
Yeah, because now everything is computerized. So the moment your passport number is put into the computer, they can know that person has left the country and he has such a passport, and then he's here. So no need to worry. If you can find the foreign mission, unless you have to travel then and there, no need to panic. You can get that document from that incident.
Moving from that, I think now, say for instance, we have seen this many a time, say people wanting to go abroad is something that we have seen in the last few years. People are really trying hard to go abroad, looking at what sort of opportunity they have. And you mentioned that best thing is to find information about what needs to be done, read up on all that, and say if you're trying to take a student visa, have the deposit in place. Whether you show it or not whether it's actual or not is a different thing and all that. So if someone is actually aspiring to go abroad, looking for employment, right, is it advisable for them to actually go try and take a business visa, or maybe look at going and getting themselves educated and then trying to convert?
Business visa? In what sense, Ishan?
Say if you want to go abroad, now a lot of these people are looking for employment.
Yeah.
So why would you want to take a student visa instead of looking at maybe starting up a business or maybe
sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't get you. No, it's like this. It depends on what you choose, and it depends on a lot of things. It depends on the time of life you are at. For example, if you are now I am in a profession. If I am qualified in Sri Lanka, it's very difficult to find for me to find employment in another country, right? Because laws differ. If I am to adjust to another country, maybe UK and the common countries, it's a bit easier, but not that easy. But go to another jurisdiction and practice is totally different. But if you are a doctor or an engineer, or where the practice is universal. The engineering is engineering, wherever you go. Medicine is medicine, what you teach is universal. It is much easier. So let's say you are in your youth, you are in your 20s, you just finished your A-levels or you have done your first degree. If you can see a path, you can take a student visa, go and adjust yourself, get whatever qualification, then you can convert into a doctor who has a practicing license in that country. Of course, do it. That is the easiest way, because you then not only you get employment, you are qualified and you are recognized. But if you are just looking, for example, if you are a law student, just to think, you go and do your masters, so that's what I went for. So I go for masters and then try to convert. Then I am looking at another 2 years of odd jobs, trying to get employment to do at a, maybe at a part-time job. That you have to advise yourself, and that's why I say, and it's a case-by-case basis. It's not, there is no one universal answer you can give. That is something that you have to advise yourself. That the most thing is you have to be informed of the choices that you are making.
Thank you very much, Astika. I think we have given an insightful update about what you really need to do, and as Astika clearly mentioned, you need to know what you want to do when you go abroad. So make sure that you prepare yourself to go when it comes to going abroad. If you are going to study, that you get a proper qualification that might suit you to remain in that country, if not come back to Sri Lanka without having to face deportation and so on and so forth. So it's time for us to say goodbyes on today's edition of Law and Order. It's the my duty to say thank you very much to Attorney at Law Mr. Astika Devendra for sharing his expertise. Thank you very much, Astika.
Thank
and
you,
it's
Shah.
time for us to say goodbye. See you same time, same place next week as well. It's bye-bye from us.